The squeeze on households tightened in March as rapidly rising food and fuel prices sent inflation to another 30-year high, even before energy bills spiked. The Office for National Statistics said inflation rose 7% in the year to March, up from 6% in February. Economist and author Linda Yueh says the UK is heading for the worst cost of living crisis in 70 years.
Well, the cost of living crisis, I think, is indeed getting worse because inflation has just come in at a 30-year high of 7%. So what's worrying is it's a very broad-based price set of pressure. So in other words, it is energy, it is commodities, the kinds of factors that are associated with the Russia-Ukraine war. However, the pass-through of these costs into, essentially goods and services outside of those categories, that's extremely worrying. So you can see that reflected in what's called core inflation, which strips out the volatile items. Now that is up about 6%. So the pass-through of high costs, all of that means there'll be less money in people's pockets, and that will make the cost of living crisis even worse. I should probably say the Bank of England and the OBR and other bodies had predicted that if inflation continues on this trajectory, we'd be facing the worst cost of living crisis since the 1950s. And unfortunately, today's inflation figures suggest we are indeed headed that way. The Bank of England forecast, for instance, thinks that inflation will hit 8% or so in April, and that reflects the lifting of the energy cap, which happens twice a year. However, given how strong inflation has come in even before that point, their worst case scenario is that inflation could actually hit double digits in the next few months by the summer. So that will certainly make the cost of living squeeze much worse. And what you can already see is if you look at the wage figures, which came out yesterday, wages are rising. However, they're being supported by the increase in bonuses, which suggests that if you take away bonuses and you just look at average earnings, people have essentially negative income. So that means the money that they're earning isn't enough to compensate for the increase in the cost of living because the inflation rate outpaces wage growth. And one immediate example of that is, I said there's a broad-based increase in prices. Food items on average are rising more than 5%, and for lots of these items, over 5%. Now, if your wages are not rising as fast as food, you immediately will feel this squeeze. And I'm afraid that is what these sets of figures this week have shown. That's where we're headed.